Joining us from Capitol Hill this morning is Congresswoman Harriet Hageman, Republican of Wyoming. Congresswoman, let's begin with what happened in the House yesterday. The Speaker tried to move to vote on reauthorizing Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. 19 Republicans, you were not one of them, blocked that move. How do you feel about reauthorization of Section 702?
I think that it is important that we reauthorize Section 702, but only if we get the necessary reforms that will protect the citizens of this great country. The reality is that the FBI and other agencies have been abusing Section 702, and we have numerous examples of that. So we have to make sure that we are protecting the constitutional rights of all of us. And so we need to have a warrant requirement, for example, anytime that they are going to surveil or search the records of American citizens. There are other reforms that we have all agreed to in terms of making sure that we can, again, protect us and rein in the overreach of these administrative agencies.
Congresswoman, was that argument made to the Speaker behind closed doors after the rule vote failed yesterday?
Well, yes, we've been talking about this for quite some time. This is not something new. We have been working on revisions to Section 702 since last fall. I'm on the Judiciary Committee, so we're actually the Committee of Jurisdiction. So we put together what we believe are the very best reforms in place. The real battle is between the Intelligence Committee and the Judiciary Committee. I land on the side of civil liberties. I want to make sure that we're, again, protecting the constitutional rights of American citizens. It's an important tool to protect the homeland, Section 702 is, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we're complying with the Constitution. So this is a debate and a discussion that has been going on for quite some time. I'm confident that we're going to get together. We are actually going to be able to resolve this issue in our conference, and that this will come back to the floor, and hopefully the rule will pass so that we can vote on these amendments.
When will it come back to the floor? What did the Speaker tell you?
I don't have a date for that. I cannot answer that. I do know that it will expire in the next week or 10 days or so. So it's something that we need to move on fairly quickly, but at the same time, the American people are protected. And by that I mean that our flagship intelligence agencies are able to continue to do their job. What it is whether they are able to use this database and surveil and search the records of American citizens without getting a warrant. So that's really one of the biggest battles that we have right now.
You said that this is a division between House Judiciary Committee members and House Intelligence Committee members. You land on the side of the House Judiciary. Where does the Speaker land?
I don't know that I can answer that question. I will let him speak for himself. He was a member of the Judiciary Committee and was, in fact, the chairman of the subcommittee on Constitution and Limited Government. So I think that he recognizes and understands the challenges that he has here and the arguments that we're making as to why we must make sure that we are enforcing and adhering to the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution.
His decision yesterday to try to put this legislation on the floor angered some Republicans. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who already was upset about a possible move to put aid to Ukraine on the floor, has a motion to vacate the chair. What do you think is the status of Mike Johnson serving as Speaker?
You know, right now he's the Speaker of the House, and I support Mike. I think that he is in a difficult position because of the slim majority, and the fact is that Republicans don't ever walk in lockstep. That's one of the reasons we're Republicans. We're very independent-minded and independent thinkers, and I think that is in contrast to a lot of Democrats, and it's what you're seeing play out on the floor. I also think that people make much too big of a deal of this. The reality is that this is the way that a democratic republic is supposed to work. We're supposed to have these debates. We're supposed to have the discussion. We're supposed to be fighting for the issues that are important to us in our constituency. This is just the way that governing is going to be if you are going to make sure that people all have a voice in the way that their government should operate. We should not be making all of these decisions behind closed doors and coming out and announcing to the masses what the laws are going to be. We have to debate and discuss. We have to be able to listen to each other. We have to be able to voice our own opinion. opinions and then move forward with what is going to be the consensus. And I think that this is just an example of that. It is a difficult issue. After we have seen the abuses of Section 702 over the last several years, the investigation into Donald Trump, the Russia collusion hoax, the things that we have seen the FBI do, the Twitter files, the surveillance of conservative Catholics, the attack on parents who are simply going to a school board meeting and voicing their opinion about how their children are being treated and what they're being taught. The FBI has strayed. They've strayed not only from their mission, but they have strayed in their efforts or in their responsibility of protecting our civil liberties at the same time that they're doing their investigations. That's why we're having this battle right now. When you look at the history of what the FBI has been doing and the Department of Justice over the last several years, if you believe in our Constitution and you believe in individual liberty, you believe in limited government, and you do not believe that the government should be engaging in some of the things that they have, then you're going to land on the side where I am, which is we need to have reforms of Section 702 so that it cannot be abused. And that is the debate that is playing out in front of the American people. But this is a debate that needs to be had, and it's perfectly appropriate and reasonable for us to be talking about these things, battling this out, having the discussion, and hopefully we can get to the place where we have the necessary reforms to make sure that the FBI and Department of Justice cannot do what it's been doing over the last several years.
Congresswoman Harriet Hageman, a Republican of Wyoming, serving in her first term, here to talk about the legislative agenda. We want to invite you to join in on this conversation, ask questions or comments. Congresswoman, let's talk about aid to Ukraine. Do you support it?
Not the way that it's situated right now. I think there are several things that we need to address before we can consider sending another $60 billion or whatever the number might be to Ukraine. The reality is that our border is an absolute disaster. We have a crisis on our border that has never before been seen in this country. I have been to the border 3 times, Yuma, the Yuma sector in Eagle Pass, and I was also down near Tucson. We have a terrible crisis on our border. We have over 10 million illegal aliens that have invaded this country over the last 3 years. We have a budget crisis in this country. We are $34 trillion in debt, and it's growing every single second. We cannot get any accountability as to how our money is being spent in Ukraine and whether the money is actually getting to the front lines where it is supposed to be. We also have absolutely no metric by which we know whether we are prevailing in this battle or not. Nobody will tell me what is the end game here. Here we constantly hear about there has to be a ceasefire in Israel. Israel has to stop. They cannot go further into Gaza. And at the same time, we have a war that's gone on in Ukraine for the last 3 years. And the few times that the leadership in Ukraine has said, maybe we need to sit down at the table and figure out if we can get a ceasefire in place and talk about where we're going, it's the Biden administration that immediately jumps in and says, oh, no ceasefire here. We're not coming to the table. We're not going to have that discussion. Why in the world would we not have that discussion? That's the thing that makes no sense to me. So I don't know if this is supposed to be a proxy war, and if it is, what is the proxy? What are we fighting? What is the end goal? We can't get that information, and this administration absolutely refuses to share information with Congress as to, again, what the end goal is and how our money is being spent.
Under a scenario where the Speaker puts on the floor a Ukraine aid bill and reauthorization of Section 702 of FISA, and it passes with Democratic support, does your support for the Speaker waver?
I'm not prepared to engage in that kind of speculation at this point. I hope that Mike Johnson does not do what you have just described. I hope that he does not put an aid package on the floor without Republican support. And I also hope that in terms of Section 702, again, we're having the debate right now as to what are the necessary reforms for Section 702 to FISA, why they're important to protect the citizens of this country. So I am hoping that Mike will not do that. At the same time, if he does, we'll address that situation when it arises. I would be very disappointed. I do not believe that we should be reauthorizing FISA Section 702 unless and until we have significant reforms to make sure that the FBI and the Department of Justice are not able to do what they've been doing the last couple of years.